Are you ready? Fantastic. So settle down. We are just starting in 30 seconds.
In other news, India welcomes the launch of another electric scooter. Yet another EV enters the market. Could this be
Just checking if you guys can hear me. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm hoping you guys have had a good breakfast, and it's good to see old faces and new. But for two people who've kind of seen our journey, you guys know what we are about. But today, the day is not about EVs. It's about systems. What we are trying to talk about is motorcycling in the EV spectrum. We have always understood that motorcycles are the largest segment in India. Motorcycles are what India moves on. Where we've had a problem is we have kept incremental changes which we have faced from the EV industry and kind of tried taking solutions which exist and made products from there. The products that have come out aren't motorcycles. At best, they are glorified scooters. This is not the way India is going to do adoption in the motorcycle space. The changes that we have been making have been incremental. They have been just enough for us to be able to say that yes, we have electric motorcycles, and that's not really the solution. We are talking about ideas that existing solutions time and time again can take care of problems in the 21st century. They just do not. comes into play is not a lot on a modern EV can be borrowed. It really, really has to be designed, it has to be built from grounds up, because it takes a very, very different thought process, it takes very, very different thinking in how and what an EV is and should be. Talking about technology, talking about products, the Prasad's going to be coming on stage and walking you through. Loving the energy out there, but still talking about products, talking about technology. Prasad's going to be coming on stage. He's going to be talking to you about where the world was, where the world is, and where the world needs to be, specifically for electric vehicles and the way riding is treated or perceived. But I just wanted to take a step back and talk about the last 6 months that we've been kind of shipping vehicles out. Wanted to kind of talk about the era in numbers. We've clocked close to 65,000 hours of riding. Now, this number really for us translates to quite a few number of rides. More than that, it translates into 21 lakh kilometers covered. This really talks about customers using this.
That's Indian Army recognizing our stats.
Thank you. So this takes care of 21 lakh kilometers covered, and we have seen it all. We have seen the harshest of terrains that India has offered to us. I mean, we were in the coldest, in the hottest on the same day. We were probably at one of the highest and sea level on the same day, and well, the weather is the weather across the country, and trust me, this vehicle has seen it all. For us, the biggest point was we've clicked 56 lakh gear shifts, and that really told us that customers wanted choice. Customers wanted the ability to decide for themselves how the vehicle behaves and not being told how it should. Couple this with ride mode utilization, and we have had people who have clocked range improvements from the first day of riding to actually forming into a rhythm. We have seen a 25% range improvement across board for every single customer who has used this product. We have actually been able to go in and clock something which is larger than what our IDC range is as well. So this is where customers really, really are adapting and using a product the way the flexibility is given to them. But while this is something on the range improvement side, these guys have been having fun as well. I mean, you've been pushing speeds, you've been hitting acceleration. This is really the freedom that needs to be given to a motorcyclist in India. And from here, the one last piece that I want to kind of touch upon is this freedom also comes in without pinching your pocket. And that for a country like ours is one of the most important reasons why we are switching to electric. I don't think India as a country we have the ability to go green because it's in vogue. We are moving to electric because it's cheaper, it's more affordable. Couple this into a package, and this is really what for us the future of riding looks like. So just to kind of sum up our thoughts, I'm going to ask the team to play a film, and I'll ask Prasad to come on stage and take you through the tech that we want to talk about later.
For a country that runs on two wheels, moving away from fossil fuels didn't mean more choice.
This is not progress. It only looks like it. Somewhere along the way, we accepted a future that asked us to give something up. A flawed system has sold us compromise as progress, and someone always pays the price. In India, it's usually the rider. The traditional motorcycle, it had involvement, feedback, emotion, but the world's moving away. One false hero gave birth to another, the electric two-wheeler. It removed choice, it removed engagement, it removed control, and it still feels hollow. Different machines, but the same compromise. But these were never the destination. They were the stepping stones. Control without compromise wasn't impossible. It was inevitable.
The electric endgame was global. It left just one question unanswered. Could electric be a real motorcycle with a real clutch and a real gearbox? It became a path of redefining everything electric avoided, solved one by one, over time.
There wasn't a single breakthrough. There were hundreds. The mechanics, the software, the cooling, the gearbox, each one answering a different thing. The last 7 years, we've refused to settle so that the Indian motorcyclists won't have to.
Because building it was only the beginning. If it had to do everything, it had to be proven.
Matter era isn't just an electric alternative. It is the correction of a broken fork in the road. This isn't the future of electric, this is the future of riding.
What followed wasn't adoption, it was a connection. The nation had responded. 7 years led to one inevitable outcome: the future motorcycle, made for India, by India.
For 7 years, we worked on something that felt obvious long before it really was. Not a product, a responsibility. This is what happens when you refuse to settle.
Well, thank you, guys. Thank you, Mohal. I know you guys were influential, but Indian Air Force planning, I think our budget is taken care of now. Okay, that was awesome. Anyways, so good to be among friends, I would say. Prasad is how people know me. And I think this is the third time I'm coming in front of the audience to talk about it. There are a lot of people that I see from the Tech 1.0 and Tech 2.0 also. So there are a lot of promises that we had made. I think I'm very happy to say that most of it we essentially hit the ball out of the ground, which is a reason why we are here to celebrate what we have done in the last 7 years, and also at the same point of time show you a glimpse of what's going to be coming in future, near future, long term, but how are we changing the paradigms? I think that's the whole journey that is what we are going to get into. So the question, when we got into, I would say a drawing table in terms of why do you want to do this? I think the most important point for us was, what were the challenges that were present? What is it that the EV industry was essentially talking about? And what is it presenting as an opportunity, but at the same point of time, is it a value that is going to be appreciated by the end customer? I think these are the aspects that we come in front of us. So higher energy efficiency, flexible, adaptable performance. You are essentially talking about low cost of ownership, but again, delivering a safe and secure ride. But beyond this, really solving for supply chain and getting into an autonomy is where our journey for vertical integration started. And all of these, each one of them actually presented a lot of opportunities, But more than opportunities, I think what was needed was a real technology mode which was shifting paradigms, not just another mode where you are essentially carrying the paradigms together. We were trying to look at what can we do. I remember in Tech 1.0 when I spoke to someone and I said, maybe in 5 years we would have about 300 patents, filed, in terms of platforms that we are building. Um, I did not get a very enthusiastic response at that point, in terms of what is it that we are talking about when you speak about 300 patents. So more than the number, I think it's about the various areas of opportunity that we have taken up and seen how the technology aspect of it can be reimagined. So for example, I think if you look at it from a context of what Mol spoke, temperature, liquid cooling, I mean, these were things which are not, unheard of in passenger cars. But when you start thinking about it from a two-wheeler context, this was something which was, unimaginable at that point of time. But again, the whole perspective was, how do you get technologies that matter, value which is essentially unlocked for the end customer, and that's where there are multiple stories starting from a powertrain, power electronics. I think the most important thing is when you get into the anatomy there, which is staring at us, you will see that I think we have realized the highest power density possible from a battery pack to power electronics in this package. And almost with zero wiring harnesses hanging around in the entire power pack. That's a tremendous achievement. A lot of it related to the motor side, how we have reimagined the controls. How do you achieve a lot of controls without driving the cost of the controllers up? We essentially pushed the motor controllers into the base software. This was again something which was unheard of. So all of these things essentially put us into a paradigm shift, which I don't think even the industry in two-wheeler ecosystem in the world has ever seen. Having said this, their patents are a very, I would say IP is a very interesting journey. You can either have an engineering monument or a product in front of you. So well to wheel, when you talk about these 400 patents, all of them, you are able to realize them in the products that we see. I think that's something which we're very, very proud of. Now, having solved this, the question that we were trying to look at is, what is it, are the opportunities that we are looking at when we start thinking of having solved the journey for ERA? How do you look at technologies for the next generation? When you start looking at next generation, what are the opportunities that are present? And how are we going to reimagine this technology 3.0 when we start looking at it? While I'm going to talk about it, any ideas of few things that come to your mind? Anyone? So we had solved powertrain, we have control solved, we have electronics out there, we have a reliable system, we have a secure element. Now when you look at it, most of it is also related to how we are essentially pulling together next gen with respect to constrained compute that we have and very siloed data behavior in terms of how do you use data as information and intelligence. And then are we getting into a reactive, how do we move away from reactive decision making to a more proactive engagement with what's available as an information from us? I think that's where we have essentially stepped up into our next generation. And when we start looking at it, the journey for us was we kind of moved the electric vehicles directly to a software-defined vehicle with our first product, which is ERA. Now, what next? Having solved software-defined vehicles, what next is the topic that we had kind of looked at. And that's exactly where we got to a point where we said this needs to be an intelligent, defined vehicle. Okay, this is essentially going to be over and above software, but essentially trying to bring in how technologies are going to come together and deliver what needs to be our real value proposition to the end customer, and at the same point of time,
Hi
reimagine
guys,
all of
Kia
the solutions
0828
that are
किसकी है?
provided. And in this journey, I think when we start
Thank
moving
you.
towards AI-driven vehicles, the most important aspect for us was how do you solve this? How do you solve this in terms of features that are realized? How do you solve this in terms of context that is in terms of giving value for the same cost is definitely going to be still a challenge. And that's where I think when we start looking at the controller architecture, we went to a complete deep integration where all of this ECU architecture, E&D architecture was reimagined to have an integrated domain architecture where the controller, not just from a hardware standpoint, but also from a software and data standpoint, has been reimagined to get to what we want. Now, this is a big step when you start looking at from a technology standpoint. There are elements of controllers which are all over the place in the vehicle ecosystem. How do you bring all of these things together to work and at the same point of time give you an optimized output for the compute power which is there on board? I think that's the journey that we have looked at. So essentially getting to power electronics, and the motor side of it, the battery side of it, and then you have vehicle controls and infotainment side of it coming into two big domains, which are essentially driving the next gen. This is one of the biggest forays that we see in terms of how the next gen architectures of the vehicles will evolve. However, the journey doesn't stop with just controllers. You need to start looking at how materials come together also, right? When you start looking at products, it is about materials getting into end solutions, how these are essentially becoming part of your intelligent ecosystem too. I'm sure most of you have heard about our announcement recently on the variable flux drive, which is one of the world's first variable flux drive coming onto the two-wheeler ecosystem. The most important part of it is when you start looking at this in terms of a powertrain and drive technology, you have a challenge which is a rarer challenge, which essentially presents supply chain related attributes. But you also have a challenge which comes in with a rare earth magnet essentially presenting to you a very, very static BH curve, meaning your energy product is defined. You have a particular level of energy density and power density that is possible. And beyond that, anything and everything that is looked at is a constraint that actually drives your controller architecture to get to what you need. Be it the speed range, be it the efficiencies that you are looking at, all of this is a sum and substance of what you try to realize. And in this, essentially what we have done is not through our material innovation. Essentially, with the ferrous nitride-based solutions looked at, we have elasticity brought into the flux. Energy products, essentially, though, are having a variable entire architecture, you are able to deliver a complete different experience to what a powertrain expectation would be from a well-to-wheel standpoint. I think this is something which is going to change the next generation of EV ecosystems, not just in a two-wheeler, but not just a supply chain challenge, but essentially trying to get to what you can do with
Hello.
material side. And
Request all the media colleagues and guests to take your chairs. There's a very interesting segment coming up. In next 15 minutes, lot interesting is happening. Request you to take your chairs as early as possible.
Two motors from a single electric machine that is possible. And now when you combine it with the 4-speed gearbox and 3 modes, you're essentially talking about multiple combinations that are available for us to drive the vehicle in a most efficient manner. So this is one of the critical technologies that you're going to witness, and we will be talking about it through this show. And beyond this, the second part of it is, I think most of you know in Tech 2.0, we spoke about the cell, which is where
For a country that runs on two wheels, moving away from fossil fuels didn't mean more choice.
This is not progress. It only looks like it. Somewhere along the way, we accepted a future that asked us to give something up. A flawed system has sold us compromise as progress, and someone always pays the price. In India, it's usually the rider. The traditional motorcycle, it had involvement, feedback, emotion, but the world's moving away. One false hero gave birth to another, the electric two-wheeler. It removed choice, it removed engagement, it removed control, and it still feels hollow. Different machines, but the same compromise. But these were never the destination, they were the stepping stones. Control without compromise wasn't impossible, it was inevitable.
The electric endgame was global. It left just one question unanswered. Could electric be a real motorcycle with a real clutch and a real gearbox? It became a path of redefining everything electric avoided, solved one by one, over time.
There wasn't a single breakthrough, there were hundreds. The mechanics, the software, the cooling, the gearbox, each one answering a different thing. The last 7 years, we've refused to settle so that the Indian motorcyclists won't have to.
Because building it was only the beginning. If it had to do everything, it had to be proven.
Matter era isn't just an electric alternative. It is the correction of a broken fork in the road. This isn't the future of electric, this is the future of riding.
What followed wasn't adoption, it was a connection. The nation had responded. 7 years led to one inevitable outcome: the future motorcycle, made for India, by India.
For 7 years, we worked on something that felt obvious long before it really was. Not a product, a responsibility. This is what happens when you refuse to settle. All right, thank you. That's all right. So, I'm hoping you guys got a fair sense of what we are up to, what our next technologies, next platforms are talking about. The way I'd like to sum up our approach towards the AI DV platform is not just about intelligence, it's about material use, it's about costs, it's about performance, it's essentially at the core bringing in a lot of efficiency. And just for people who weren't inside and wanted to see it again, I'd like to ask the team to play the video one more time.
kind of now talking about the next piece, which is where are we planning to put this tech to use? And that is where, sorry, just trying to. So this is where we are going to start talking about what our aspirations are, what our plans look like. We have the Era today sitting close to a 200cc equivalent, and this is a product that's available to customers today. This is something that's working well for customers. From here, we are talking about now the mass market. So at Matter, we are not planning to bring in products which are over 200cc anytime in the near future. We are looking at electrification and the electric motorcycle journey as a journey for us which starts at 200cc, goes towards 150cc, goes towards 125cc, and eventually kind of allows us to play on the full product portfolio between 200 and 125. I'm just going to give these guys a couple of minutes to let the props come up. So the Era for us sits at the top of the performance curve. We are going to be following this up with a 150cc variant of the same platform. This is going to be the next immediate product that's going to come out from our side. This is going to be followed by a 125cc equivalent and the performance equivalents that we are going to be bringing in. This is then coupled with multiple different form factors of the same platform and the architecture. And eventually, once we are done with our entire motorcycling portfolio, is where we are going to be using the same concept of AIDV and look at how we bring in scooters. So this is what our next 3 to 4 year roadmap looks like, focusing in the mass market segment, sub 200cc, and that's how we are looking at approaching the electrification of motorcycles in India. Thank you. So I think guys we can break for lunch, and happy to, the team's around, if you guys have any questions, happy to kind of answer them. Thank you.